Anybody else? Right. A very, very good morning. Thank you so much for making the time on a Sunday morning that early to come in for what would be considered as, I guess, the step one or initiation of a proposed master's program to be offered by Ideas, the Office of Interdisciplinary Studies. It is perhaps the first time an office is in the university offering a degree program. Um, so I wanted to start and take this moment to first, at the very outset, acknowledge the contributions of, I would probably say, 4 to 5 faculty members who have spent a good last 8 months working in creating what you see in front of you, which is a sort of an outline structure of this program. That would include Dr. Namesh Kalimsati, Dr. Divya, Dr. Preeti, um, for a period of time, Dr. Sriti Ganguly, Rohit, and each of them have come and approached this sort of ideative journey of sorts from different schools. So the positioning of each faculty is not, let's say, within just simply within the office, but faculties have been teaching sociology, geography, economics, anthropology, international relations, and have looked at the program from what it could do as a experimental design of engaging in interdisciplinary teaching. So, I mean, it's important to acknowledge and realize first that the office was mandated by the vice chancellor to bring faculty members from across schools together and think about a creative process of engaging in collaborative research based on projects that would be important to their own research interests. But it was very clear at the very outset that the journey of ideas would not be restricted simply to that, which is to allow faculty members to come together, think of projects, or see this as a think space or what is famously sort of now termed as a think tank kind of network within the university. We always had a plan to branch out, ensure that there is a democratization of epistemic knowledge systems within the university, but also gauge in the learning of how we can um, engage with theory, methods, practice from what we gain from outside the campus. So this is, as we all know, an elite institution, one which is now trying consciously, with support of the vice chancellor and with collaboration with professors like Ramakrishnan and others, to really engage with the community, ensure that there is a sort of a transparent, accountable channel of communication. Private universities are not famously defined within the ambit or structure of principles like fairness, equity, are not the first things that you would otherwise talk about. And it is a reconciling conflict that a lot of us has. So what we try to do is we try to reconcile that conflict in by saying that, oh, we'll do a few of those things with the community and society. And sometimes there's a very plastering, superficial approach in doing that. We're all conscious of that. Um, my hope in 2016, when I started this research center at this university, Center for New Economic Studies, was a clear set of frustration with the discipline that I was primarily trained in, which was economics. I feel as a field in social science, the maximum amount of disservice that has been done to both understanding and studying the impact of forces that would be seen in context to development studies, if you were to broadly canvas it, has been done by that one discipline. And I think it's not the discipline's issue. The discipline is broad enough. and we shouldn't be like critiquing all the time that there's everything is wrong with economics. There's many ways. There's a whole ocean of schools of thought, but it's the mainstream perspective, the practice of that discipline, and the application of that discipline that has created a significant amount of rupture, to the extent that now development and destruction almost tends to go hand in hand. And that was the theme for a poster competition for which a lot of students shared some very excellent posters that were put out and displayed in the last 2 years, oh, sorry, last 2 days. And it was interesting to see what people, but very interesting, I was seeing with most of the posters that were put by students was the use of two forces, the understanding of a very interchangeable, synonymous interpretation of development with growth. And the second was technology. Um, I feel sincerely that there are issues in the way the understanding of development has been limited to what happens to processes of growth, accumulation of capital, its distribution, and its sort of overarchingly link with income uh, generating patterns. You would want at a certain degree, and this is not a question which is a recent question. I would probably say that from the 1980s onwards, this distributive end of issues, the failure of a top down, trickle down structure, this was all very well written, highlighted. I think what really lacked was an intellectual movement that would be mapped with the social economic movement of being able to map this. And I think the issue there is not restricted just to economics, but the broader social science area, that a lot of academics or intellectuals over a period of time became so comfortable in gated, communities within academia that they forgot there is a responsibility that intellectuals also have to being part of those movements. I mean, if you would be part in a public university setting of a intellectual or social movement of so as to, you'd be bracketed now in a very clear terminology, which the status quo of the political establishment defines in a certain way. But singularly, there was a linearity in establishment of those journeys. I'm not categorizing everyone in the same bucket, but I'm just saying generally that's what started happening. So what you have is a situation where economic freedom, access to markets became the way that you would understand how development could happen. India's journey in that regard has been extremely asymmetric. It's focused extremely on urban areas. It's completely dismissed the understanding of what is the rural interface, the linkages that one provides to the other, the dualities of formality, informality, all of these things have happened as a result of a very divorced, disconnected relationship between our understanding of development, the learning of it, and its sort of policy application. So what does this mean? Where do we look at? So 2016, when this center was coming up, my first target was that students on campus are oriented towards field work in a certain way. They gain some knowledge of being there out within communities and absorb what they are finding and looking at. It's been a journey where over the last 7 to 8 years, the center has done its own bit in terms of student engagement. But I was pushing for a master's program in development studies at the time, at different junctures here. At that time, I was a faculty at the School of International Affairs. The idea at that time was the School of International Affairs doing a degree in development studies. It really doesn't add up. There were not many other avenues. So we paused, we reflected, we said, okay, maybe it's not the right time. But as soon as ideas came about, this was last year, I was sure that 1 year, 1.5 years from now, maybe it would have been 2026 when we would have formally pushed for a master's program. But it was the vice chancellor in July 2024 in the US, upon delegation visiting to some universities, that he mentioned that, listen, I mean, we have sort of now maxed out on our student housing capacity, and we have to think creatively of online and non-residential programs. And the word non-residential came, which I realized would be based out in the Delhi facility. As paradoxical and oxymoronish it may sound, of doing program and development out of a facility in Tajpan Singh is, for a lot of students be as appealing, but it's also interesting. What better place really to understand what forces of capital tend to do, and how it spatially concentrates themselves in different areas. But having said that, I realized at that very moment, I said, this is time. I came back, and as a team, we had a meeting. And I have done nothing to reduce the workload of any of the faculty members who were affiliated at the office over the last year. Namish has been a victim perpetrator of both ends in some way, but we brought together a team, and I think they have been committed. They have helped in the hiring and recruitment process of this program. I'm giving this broader sketches because a lot of people don't know how this program really came about. And it has also been this deep conflict amongst the leadership of saying that, well, we're not consulted at all different times. I felt that a curriculum workshop would be a very good occasion that you invite as much of people to engage on the program. We were also sketching out what we needed to do. So finally, last 2 days was spent within the office reflecting a lot on what we have been able to do on the research spectrum. It also allowed us to think and introspect on what we want to do ahead. And one of the things that we committed ourselves in doing is that now with the program, allow a greater fluid mobility between teaching, research, and allowing a product, let's say, in the university terms, that allows the practice of interdisciplinarity to come in. I must confess, though, that the barriers to interdisciplinarity are restricted from three key forces. I think the inability of understanding or acknowledging the differences that exist within disciplines. um, Sometimes we ourselves, in many of our own scholarship, not acknowledging the nature of differences that we have. I mean, economists, again, guilty of doing that. There's so many schools of thought. A neoclassical supply side model tends to often determine everything that is being done, but that's not the only way you could look at answers. There are many other ways. Second, professional integration. You need a degree of, I would say, openness or humility, or being identified with things that you've not figured out as part of your work. And as a result, it allows you to collaborate and engage with other scholars. Most often than not, the real answers to your research questions come from outside the practice of a given discipline, not from within it. And by that, what I mean is, when you would be out there engaging with different people, especially in social science, it's within communities and our knowledge of factors within there that would come back and reflect. I think that reflection is lacking. There is what Shiv Vishwanathan famously says, a crisis of theory. And for resolving a crisis of theory, you need a right to theory, which is to theorizing while being able to engage with groups. So now you have these terminologies of practice, not of practice, in the way of even faculty members are put. So it's like one person's job is to be out there in the field and just be there, and then one's job is to sit inside and say, okay, how can I figure this out? No, well, you have to have an engagement of both kinds, which brings to the third point of collaborative practice. I think at Jindal per se, I have given up to a certain extent of enforcing some degree of moral compass or reflection. It is not my authority or position to say that there are differences in disciplines and you need to take a look at that. It's for everyone within their own work. Professional integration, I think, is a value based chain which every institution in its culture establishes. I have given 2 cents on this in my conversations, as private as possible, to the vice chancellor and the leadership, that clearly integration of professional practices amongst, in terms of sincerity, just adding up to what requires, is not at the level that one would imagine. I must confess that a lot of faculty who have tremendous potential and can add so much to the discussion we are doing, we're not able to get them, at least in the same room. And that comes from an institutional practice culture. But the third thing, which is collaborative practice, I felt could be done by this institution, which is you create different avenues, you create different platforms, you create different kinds of engagements that allows people to at least come together, right? And then reflect. And it may start with 10 people or 15 people in the room, but it would add up over time. So, with that, I would pause. There's a lot to discuss. It's a long day ahead of us with what we have planned. I want to singularly thank Dr. Divya Gupta and Dr. Sriti Ganguly, both present here. If we could just give a round of applause. They've put together an exceptional panel of thinkers, speakers. They've gone back and forth on who can come and add with a lot of contestations, and it's very enjoyable doing that because I come with a sort of stealth of force saying that, oh, can we think of this? But that feedback loop has been tremendous. I also congratulate and thank the new faculty members that Ideas have joined. You should please, if possible, engage with those who are visiting here today. And yeah, we should now formally begin. What I could probably request Divya to do is, in her remarks, also mention a little bit about the questions that are outlined in the way each of the panels were being conceptualized today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Uh, I just want to, before we talk about the agenda of today's panel discussions, I really was stuck at something that Professor Mohan said about development being used interchangeably as growth. So I just want to just share this and just food for thought for all of us, maybe. A student, for example, a law student reached out to me and said that, ma'am, if we reduce income inequality, aren't we hampering growth? And exclamation, question mark, full stop, whatever we want to put it out there. So this is just, this one single question just made me realize how important it is uh, uh, to, in our pedagogy, to treat, to understand the difference between development and growth, for example. And the question came from the right place. There was, question came from an innocent place, actually. So I just want to emphasize how important, I cannot emphasize it enough, the difference between growth and development is. And this course is very, very important. This course overall, hopefully, will bring in the right elements of how we think of development as a theoretical course, as well as we bring in the fieldwork component of it. And that is exactly how we have conceptualized the workshop today. So the workshop is divided into three panel. We are going to have three panel discussions today, right, starting now in the morning. So the first panel will reflect on the theoretical discourse that goes around, especially the evolution of theoretical discourse that there has been around development, especially in the global south. So we want to discuss, we would like our panelists to reflect a little bit on the debates and the discourse that goes around this, and what are the pedagogical takeaways for us as we are in the process of designing the curriculum, and the faculty members who are also a part of this program, who will also engage at a much deeper level with the students while teaching this program. So the biggest purpose of this workshop is pedagogical deliberation, keeping in mind the theoretical perspective. So that is what we would want the panelists of the first panel to maybe share their thoughts based on their experiences, their own studies, to share their reflections on that. The second panel, we move to second panel to talk a lot more about the methodological tools and inquiries that can be used to deepen our understanding of development and to be able to employ those tools onto the field, because this course is not entirely a taught course. It's not going to be an entirely taught course. We also want to have a right amount and element of fieldwork practices. So we also want to understand the various methodological tools which are at our disposal, which must be a part of our pedagogical way of developing the curriculum for this course. And the third panel is going to focus entirely on the fieldwork aspect of this course, that what are the everything related to the fieldwork, how do we navigate, how do we conduct ourselves, how do we navigate ourselves to the fieldwork component of this course, what are the ethical considerations, and the I mean also have share reflect on the importance of incorporating field work into a program like this. So we are very excited. We are very much looking forward to all the discussions that will happen throughout the day, and we hope that, I'm pretty sure, all of us are pretty sure that we are going to learn a lot in today's three panels. So really looking forward to it, and thank you so much everyone and all the panelists.
So, just one final observation. So, the schedule is pretty much here, but there might be things, perspectives that we may not able to all encapsulate over the course of a day. We are still in the process over the next 2 to 3 weeks in really thinking through closely of each of the courses that has been proposed as part of the program. So those present here, and those who would want to advise us to connect with someone, we would be happy to do so. Connect. We've been engaging with professors who have been advisors to the office. Professor Toby Green, who is very kindly as a historian looked at the role of narratives in state design and development paradigms, how coloniality, pre-coloniality, post-coloniality, those are important questions in theory. I must also thank Professor Dennis, who was, I think, one of the first persons Dr. Divya met when we were really thinking about the program. The deans at the school level, which is Dean Sudarshan, Dr. Naresh Singh, all of them were, as advisors, very critical in being able to propose new ways of thinking through this. So, with that, let's open. I think maybe the first panel. We'll just get the arrangements done. But in the meantime, Preeti, you could just introduce and get started. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I will not take more time because we are all looking forward to hearing from you. But I will say this. In an earlier avatar, I was teaching sociology of development. So while working through the syllabus and looking at one of the syllabuses you had shared with Divya, it was really exciting to go back.